So Marvel Rivals is just about to finish its beta. I have some closing thoughts on this beta. We're gonna go over some of the stuff that I said in the last video that I've either changed my mind on or feel more strongly about. We're gonna talk about some new stuff or stuff that I didn't get into quite as much that I think really needs to be addressed. And we're gonna talk about, in my opinion, what the most important lessons learned from this beta should be. So let's get into it. But first, let's start with some good old brain rot by reading some comments. A PvE mode would do wonders for the game, especially after grinding out comp. Also, Ballast needs serious tuning. There seems to be a lot of outliers. Bro, have we learned nothing from Overwatch 2? Both players get buffs, sweetie. It's called the Anchor buff because the Anchor gets extra health or like 15% damage/healing boost. You have to look at the entire hero breakdown. It's usually under the portrait on the left. Alright, so I didn't really mention the Anchor buff stuff because I think it's truly some of the worst UI I've ever seen, that it's hidden down in this corner instead of under the team-up abilities. But let's go into more depth when I'm talking about what exactly I mean when I say that characters need to both gain access to these abilities, right? On Black Panther, I can utilize Magic's portals, but I also get access to Magic's portals. I can use them myself. These little number changes that the anchors get for these, I think that needs to be thrown out entirely. And if the anchor bonuses are going to be stats like this, they should at least be stats that actually apply to their base kit. That's why my suggestion for Scarlet Witch was giving her 1 extra ranged attack when she's paired with Magneto. I don't know, I feel like they could just do something with these that is more interesting than anchor bonuses.
You need me.
Since most of the anchor bonuses seem to center around tanks too, it leads to a lot of the tanks feeling kinda boring. Like if I want a tank that has cool interactions and ability power-ups and stuff, I can play Strange, Magneto, Penny, or Thor. But most of the other tanks are built around picking for your team and giving them a buff. The criticism isn't that there is literally no buff, because, well, there is. The problem is that that buff feels like nothing. You're telling me that if I'm playing Spider-Man, right? My team-up ability lets me do this? That's crazy. But if I'm playing Adam Warlock, my team-up bonus is I get 15% extra healing. Wow. He is borderline unkillable. You have no idea how many times I was KO with Venom, dude. He's only OP if you know how to play him or have a mouse and keyboard for perfect accuracy. Because if not, he's not what you think he is. Sometimes I just want to get my hands on you fuckers. What does this mean? This character isn't OP because I'm ass at them. Checkmate, atheists. What the fuck? What? I wish they'd take something from each of their kit when doing team-ups. For example, when Magic pairs with Black Panther, her right click gets buffed to shoot Vibranium Claws or something. This is what I'm talking about. The team-ups should give an element of either character's kit to the other so that they have access to more exciting things. Maybe like when Rocket gets paired with Groot, Groot's healing wall does a bit more healing, or like shoots out some healing orbs instead of just base healing it. His survivability as a whole is nerfed, so the team-up is more encouraged. Or if he paired up with Jeff, it could shoot out little bubbles. Stuff like that. They could get so much more creative with a team-up that goes both ways to encourage it. Because currently, the team-ups feel really good for some characters and ass for others, and any anchor team-up feels like shit. If I'm playing Thor with a Storm, I barely notice a difference. But if I'm playing Thor with a good Hela and I get rezzed once or twice in the game, you better believe I'm having more fun with that team-up pairing. Because the anchor team-ups are the problem. Make the game first person. That's all you gotta do to make it a good game, LOL. Bro, if you had to play Spider-Man in his current iteration in first person, especially with the buggy web swings, you would just throw up, I guarantee it. Anyways, now that we've finished our comment spring cleaning, let's talk about some other problems with the game that I don't think I got as much in depth with. In a recent survey they put out, they asked, what method of obtaining heroes in our game do you prefer? All heroes obtained for free? Most heroes obtained for free, a few obtained through purchase/missions, a few heroes obtained for free, most obtained through purchase/missions. Now, when I talk about problems Marvel Rivals has, I am not exaggerating when I say that I think this is the single largest issue the game could possibly face. Having characters locked behind things like battle passes and hero unlocks was disastrous for Overwatch 2. Do we need to bring up the clip of the guy leaving a game to go purchase Mauga?
No fucking way he leaves to buy the
No way. There's no way.
Wait, did he go buy it?
If he fucking did.
If he just bought the battle
There's
pass,
no
bro.
fucking way.
He bought it! He bought it! What the?
Now look, I'm all here for Marvel Rivals being a slightly more casual alternative to Overwatch, and I'm also actually all for NetEase monetizing the shit out of this game through things like skins and battle passes, as long as some of the content is unlockable. I personally think that base designs of these characters are good enough that I would be willing to spend money on the game if the monetization isn't that predatory. But locking characters behind battle passes or locking characters behind paywalls is predatory. If this is how Marvel Rivals will launch, it will probably make more money in the short term. As a whole product, it will be significantly degraded in the eyes of most players, and it will probably lead to the game not doing as well in the future. I talked about this recently when I was playing Star Wars Hunters, that the characters being paywalled means that I'm less likely to want to come back to the game. I'm honestly not that okay with characters being unlockable to begin with, especially in a hero shooter where things like counter-swapping or synergies are so important. Double that with the fact that synergies and team-up attacks in this game basically define metas. As far as we've seen between the alpha and beta, these have been very important. So not being able to go a character because you didn't spend $5-10 in the shop, and because of that synergy missing, losing a game, is worse than not winning a game because you don't just have Mauga. Now you're losing a game because you do have Mauga. You're missing the support that makes Mauga 10% chunkier, which is even worse. This needs to be something that does not make it into the base game. I am not exaggerating when I say this is one of the most detrimental and scary things that this game could possibly have. If by any chance anyone sees this and still has the time to go in and complete these surveys, please do so. And if not, make a massive stink about just the suggestion that characters could be locked behind paywalls. Because if this game truly does want to compete with Overwatch, it needs to hit Overwatch in areas where it has had mistakes before and blast past them by learning from those mistakes. No one likes heroes locked behind battle passes, and no one likes heroes locked behind paywalls. The destructible environments are considerably better than alpha, because now when they break, especially on certain areas, there are set breakages that happen that allow you to access things. A lot of times when a structure will break, it'll leave a ramp to allow you to get to high ground, or it will be picked up out of the way so that it doesn't block the area. But I do think this is an area that's going to take a lot of time to get down perfectly. I do think destroying the environments has started to become a lot more of like an active thought process that I do. I remember breakable walls that I can use for big flanks. I remember what floors can be broken so I can drop a dangerous enemy through it. And every time that works, it feels so good. There are also times where it works against you though. A standout one of these times was when I was playing a game and the enemy team couldn't touch the cart because a roof fell on their head and blocked their line of sight of the cart, meaning that they see nothing. The roof fell down and it trapped their venom so he couldn't touch cart. I mean, I guess this is kind of a cool thing, but it's also hard for this to not feel a little bit cheap when it happens to you in game. But I think this is well within the realm of improvements before launch or even post-release to make it a lot more strong and support. Also, this is a bit of a weird critique. Queue times are too fast in rank, at least at the lower end. By the time you start getting to low plat, high gold, the queue times start to get a bit longer. The problem with short queue times is a lot of times you are queuing into the exact same people you just played with.
No!
I'm taking the ban. I closed
Wait, no,
that shit.
we gotta lock in. We gotta lock in.
No, I'm taking the timeout. I'm taking the timeout, man. I'm good. I'm good. I'm taking the timeout. I don't care if I get banned. I'm not playing with that shithead. Which can kind of take the fun out of the game a bit. I distinctly remember on the first few days of playing, I queued into this one dude like 12 times, and he was fucking free elo every single time. Because of the way that the game's ranked system works, you can't really lose rank that much. So despite the fact that I was climbing 30 to 40 points every game, they weren't losing that many points every game, meaning I can continue to run into them game after game after game and just farm them for elo. This has also led, allegedly, to a lot of throwers in games, I think for this exact purpose. It could be a form of win trading. I don't know why throwers think the way that they do, but because of that, there's been a lot of toxicity and a lot of bad players outside of their rank. And you were bad at both, bro. Stop blaming the support.
You are so dog shit. Shut the fuck up. You're a tank.
Hey man, you're 10 and 16.
When they're doing dog shit. Fuck you.
Supports, you're doing fine. Don't let the trash Punisher talk shit to you.
Let's wait like a minute before we queue again.
Personally, I think this game should have an iron rank and should actually have 3 ranks of bronze and start everyone at bronze, but they can actually drop down. Or start everyone at iron and just have the climbing process slow down the further up you get. Make it so that a win and a loss slowly become closer and closer and closer in terms of what you gain and what you lose, with maybe the highest ranks in the game carrying more for a loss than for a win, but only slightly. I do also think that personal performance is a factor in these games. I'm not 100% certain, but I am noticing that despite being at very similar ranks to other people in my lobbies, if I'm playing in a stack, sometimes I gain or lose less than they do, and it does seem to be contingent on things like being an SVP or an MVP. Also, while we're talking about competitive, I do need to say that this game greatly needs an avoid teammate slot. Also, while we're here, let's talk about visual clutter, specifically when it comes to buildable. At any given time, there could be a group playing Fortnite, while Penny Parker is CCing you every 4 seconds with mines and webs all over the ground, while there's a Namor with at least 2 squids on the map just absolutely smoking your backline, while the Punisher is playing in a damage-reducing turret, while there are 3 Loki clones absolutely smoking your backline, which if you had the audacity to think you could dive any of this fuckery, then turn into 3 healing Immort shields, all while Rocket Raccoon spawns not 1, not 2, but 3 separate buildables, which some of which are destroyable, some of which aren't, all of which low-key look kinda similar. So yeah, that's too many buildable. The other most annoying portion of this game is the amount of resurrects that can be on one team because of this as well. Adam Warlock can res 2 people, Ella can resurrect people, including tanks. Rocket can resurrect people. And Adam Warlock's ult can resurrect people. Which, weirdly enough, his ult seems to be the most balanced version of this, because at least they don't come back with full health. That means, depending on the team comp, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4 characters that can self. Or if you trade Mantis out for Rocket Raccoon, any other one of those characters that can already self-res can just res. Adam Warlock can res everyone. Too many resurrects. Resurrects make the game kinda unfun. I was also talking about this a lot with one of my friends after we played a very long session of Rivals, and mostly just about how the game feels a little bit like dumbed down Overwatch. And my point in this was that I think that in terms of the actual gameplay and the interactions, it does feel like a dumbed down Overwatch. But in terms of the individual character's skill expression, it is so much higher than where Overwatch is currently. I will be fascinated to see where this game goes with time, but doing like silly small things like, you know, the fact that you save your ults between rounds and control points, and Doctor Strange is a portal that gets them across the whole map. Being able to pop that in their backline and be able to ult their entire team frame 1 as like a surprise Diva Bomb portal type thing. It's so sick. And there are so many small moments where you just feel like, yeah, I really just outplayed this person. Be it with synergies, be it with the character's kits, just small interactions of game knowledge that make you feel like a genius for pulling them off. I'm also going to say this yet again, melee characters need to have a passive speed boost or larger hitbox, and also probably air stalling. There are so many times while playing melee characters where you are stuck fighting enemies that are backpedal, and the enemy backpedaling just gets to shoot you for so long while you can't close the distance on them. And that's excluding mobility options. Because there are times where you dash in, you hit them with something, they dash away, and then you've got to wait for your mobility options to come back because you used your ability to close the distance. And it just feels very frustrating. I would imagine that mobility creep in this game isn't a thing that's going to get better. I would imagine mobility creep is going to probably get worse. More and more characters will be added with crazy mobility options or defensive abilities. That's just sort of the nature of power creep in these types of games. But I think that as a whole, melee characters should be faster than characters holding weapons or that just have range in general. Because without that, you kind of get screwed. Let's also talk a little bit about mobility in this game, specifically with the web swingers. I'd be amazed if we aren't going to see more of spider people introduced into this game, be it through skins or new characters. But I have a couple small tweaks that I think would actually make the Spider-Man characters a lot more fun to play as a whole. The biggest problem with these characters is they basically have guaranteed kill confirm setups, and their mobility is outrageously quick. What I would suggest to the Marvel Rivals team is a few-fold. First off, just as a general gameplay change, make it so that double jumps do not cancel your momentum in this game. This would basically be equivalent to the Lucio wall riding change when it comes to characters with high mobility. When you swing on Spider-Man, you lose your mobility when you double jump, which can kind of be a problem. Also, the way in which you swing seems to be just like it needs a few more passes on the balancing to make it a little bit better. First off, I think that a bit more visual feedback if something is in range to be webbed to would be really nice. I don't think it's necessarily something the game needs, but it would be very helpful in the long term. Secondly, I think that initially you shouldn't start with that much momentum when you are doing the sort of longer swing. The web zip sort of part, where you dash towards an object, that can be just as fast as it is currently. But the swing itself should start out slower and be more about building momentum. Also, as a whole, I think we could just turn down the momentum a decent chunk as a whole, but make it, again, so that like double jumps and momentum is carried through all your actions. The character would feel considerably easier to control and play into. And while we're talking about mobility in this game, I still think that wall crawling and wall running kind of feel like shit. Especially for characters that can go upside down, the way that it controls is so fucking perplexing to me and feels very unintuitive. I think this definitely needs a few more passes before it's ready for launch. Also, something that I don't see people talking about that much in this game is the balance of characters to each role. For instance, we have 7 vanguards, 10 duelists, and 6 strategists. Now, one of the theories that I've always had with Overwatch specifically is part of the reason so many more players are driven to play DPS is not because of the fact that the DPS role is the most fun, but because a certain character in the DPS role feels the most fun for that player. So for Marvel Rivals to try and balance out tank, DPS, and support, or Vanguard, Duelist, and Strategist as they call them in this game, to have relatively even rosters is a good sign. Because of the fact you can be a bit more creative with your takes on Marvel characters, you can kind of slot most Marvel characters into any one of these roles. And I think that is one of the biggest strengths of this game moving forward. I also want to use this as sort of an opportunity to talk a bit more about role queue. I still don't think that role queue is necessary for this game, but I think that making team-ups feel more rewarding on both ends is the way to fix people begging for role queue. If I have to tell you that you need to swap to support, otherwise we're going to lose the game, you're probably not going to want to do that. However, if I suggest that someone swap support so they get a cool power-up and I get a cool power-up and we both do better, it's a way easier argument to make, and people are going to be more receptive to that. It also means that you can kind of curate metas, because the way that team-ups work in this game, it's going to be very interesting to see how at the higher ends of play metas are formed. Are they exclusively built around team-up synergies for the whole team? Some of the team? None of the team? Are the team-up synergies really impactful for this, or are they only a slight bonus sometimes? Will they lean more into making more strict team comps with the team-up attacks? Or will they start to reduce the power of team-up attacks and just make them a cool little flair to add on to things? I don't know, but it's exciting to think about in theory. Personally, I think team-up attacks are the biggest unique standout of this game, and they should, if anything, lean putting more into them. Lock more of characters that are overpowered's power behind a team-up attack, so that it is contingent on another character. Balance team-ups as a group. Is a character doing well just because they're in a specific team-up, or are they doing well because they're that strong on their own? It adds so many more layers to this game, which I'm sure will be a nightmare to balance, but it still gets me excited for it as a whole. Also, while we're on the topic of variety and just sort of unique things about this game, it really needs more maps. I think from the general standpoints of balance and things like that, I feel like the game's good to launch. Hero variety is strong, characterization is strong, a lot of the little details of the game are really good. The biggest problem, hands down, is the maps. It needs at least 2 more settings for these maps, and I talked about this more in the other video, and my thoughts are the same for this one. So anyways, do you agree? Do you disagree? What things do you think need to be changed from beta to launch? Do you think the game is ready for launch? I certainly don't, but I'm excited for when it is. And get out of here with that roll queue bullshit.